So I think in the long run, it's good to play rhythm guitar as well as lead too. But that's not to say that I don't love lead guitar, because of course I love lead guitar. I mean, you gotta, all these guitars, I mean, on this wall is like lead guitar, and you think about how many great Stratocaster players there were and how many great Les Paul players there were. So lead guitar is important too. And I think a few milestones in my musical growth was meeting Robben Ford and him really emphasizing rhythm guitar and how to play with bands and how to play with other people. And lead guitar, I mean, we all love Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and all those people too. So I think if you can really work on the rhythm and really work on the lead, and I think lead sometimes is, it's hard in the blues context for a lot of people because they think that it's boring. Rhythm and lead can be boring. So you kind of like, when you approach your lead playing, it's sort of like you kind of, sometimes I see people, they get lost, because they're thinking of too many ideas to try and play, while they're playing a lead. And I think the best way that I can think of any problem, even in life or anything, is to break it down to its simplest form. Break it down to the most simple thing you can do. To me, the simplest thing, if I hear something or if I approach a solo or anything on the guitar, I think about it, okay, what's the first note I'm going to play? And how is everybody going to react to that note? How can I make people get interested in what I'm playing? And I can probably demonstrate this better on the guitar than I can talking, because I'm not a great talker. But, I would say, just as an example, like maybe take a slow blues and like we were doing, And yes, I got carried away on that, but, you start like, and then you kind of take a little break and you kind of just bring people into what you're talking about, If you go into mile a minute, tell me this, like if you talk to somebody and you have a conversation with somebody and you're going, yeah, so the weather outside is all great and everything is great, and don't you kind of like feel like, oh God, slow down a little bit, like take, calm down. And it's the same way I think with blues guitar playing. It's like about a conversation, and just take your time, And there's absolutely other people that definitely don't take their time and they've been successful and it's been great. But for me and my way is to kind of maybe take my time and then build up something. It's sort of like telling a story. I know I've talked about this before, but that's something that's really been on my heart when I listen to blues guitar players and aspiring blues guitar players, is to just take your time. If you just take a whole solo and just play a few notes, I mean, you think about B.B. King, Albert Collins, and all these great blues players. They played a lot of the same thing over and over again, but you never got tired of it because they made it their own and they made it a signature. It's a signature sound that they have. And this is what I've tried, in my humble way, I've tried to do the same thing, is have my own Kirky signature little style, and that's just a combination of all the stuff that I love. And I don't know, I can give you an example. What's happening? I can give you an example kind of what I mean, For instance, you got your like B.B. King, Yeah, I always talk about B.B. King because I love B.B. King. Okay, well, my way might be, just as an example, it's like taking a little bit of the B.B. King and just making it kind of my own conversation, taking things from him. And I think also with blues, it's okay to copy licks. Everybody says, oh, you have to have your own voice. You have to have all this stuff yourself and come up with your own thing. But I actually think it's okay to play every Stevie Ray Vaughan song, learn note for note B.B. King songs, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you can start to develop your own voice, you know. This is what I think, you know, so personally, I think that blues is all about different approaches. And what I mean by that is, like, say, for instance, you got Chicago blues, and you have all of these classic players that played Chicago and learning all those different songs and things like that, learning about West Coast blues and Texas blues. You can combine all these things together, and then you just have more things to work from. Because, I mean, it's pretty much, most of blues guitar has been said already. We know that. I mean, B.B. King pretty much forgot more than, you know, most people know. You know, he played all the different styles. And what I mean by that, a person who hasn't heard B.B. King too much, is he started off playing, you know, sort of like in the kind of, not string bending, just kind of playing. You know, kind of that primitive kind of way. Well, it's not primitive, it's beautiful. But he done that, and then he went to more of a... You know, and then that went into... You know, kind of more singing as you go along, and then it kind of got to... You know, so it's a natural progression. He kind of done all those styles, and I think there are modern blues players who took from B.B. King and sort of took every period, you know, from his going through all these different styles and made their own style out of one of his styles, if that makes any kind of sense at all, you know. So I think if the more, you know, you listen to blues and listen to different players, you just have more information. It's just like studying for anything else, you know. The more information you know, the more you can elaborate, the more you can talk about it, the more you can walk it and get it in your soul. But that's basically where I'm at as far as blues guitar. Definitely copy. It's okay. Clapton done it. BB done it. BB listened to T-Bone Walker and Lowell Fulson and maybe a little Willie Johnson and Lonnie Johnson and all these people. So I think it's definitely okay. And then just find your way from that. But you have to kind of know about the basics to go to Joe Bonamassa level. Anybody have any questions? You want to know anything else about Kirky before I go on? Yeah.
See you again.
Yeah. My friend.
So you're mostly backing up singers?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
That was my occupation for years.
Yes.
Yeah, backing up singers.
And my question is, was it the case where you had some singer who hadn't a strong voice?
Yeah.
And he always, I can't hear myself.
Oh, yeah.
Guitar's too loud. What have you done in the case? How could you do the whole show with hearing yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, it's different.
That's a big problem right now for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, really with that, when I was playing more R&B kind of music, it was easier. I know, and if you're playing blues, it is sometimes difficult, you know. But if you're playing like, you know, like... that kind of stuff is like easy to play quiet and stuff. But if you're playing like... That's hard to play quiet. I understand. I know what you mean. But I think the singer to me is the most, well, kind of in a way it's the most important part unless it's your band.
Yeah.
But you know, so I think it's a way that you just have to figure out a way to deal with it. And one thing that I'll do is like play, if I have to play quiet, I'll play with the same intensity, but I'll just turn my volume down. Like if I'm playing like, say if I have to play super quiet, you know, I'll be like. Same attack and same feel and confidence and everything, but just at a lower volume. And I've done that for years, you know, always try and have the same intensity, but just turn my guitar volume down or do something to make it work. And then most of the time, if you get going with the drummer, then you can kind of turn up for your solos, you know. So you're playing like, you know, at that volume, and then you kind of, you know, and usually you can kind of get away with it a little bit, you know. But it is, the vocalist is, you know, they're kind of the leaders. I mean, you know, you got Robben Trower and different people who is their band, but yeah, I guess you just have to, that's one thing is kind of difficult sometimes because vocalists can be kind of, you know. I mean, I'm a vocalist myself and I see myself doing those things. It's like, can you not play so loud? I mean, calm down a little bit. It's okay. I have to try and sing because tomorrow night I might not be able to sing anymore because it's too loud. So I get where they're coming from, but I've always tried to be, you know, very conscious of the vocals. And, you know, and another thing actually that's kind of off of the subject is, you know, I will try and, like, if a person is singing a certain song, like say a harmonica player, because I've played with a lot of harmonica players, like if they're playing, I'll try and, like say they're playing a Sonny Boy style song, like I'll try and play in the Sonny Boy style, or I'll try and play in the Little Walter style. And I know that's contrary to what a lot of people think. They think, oh, you should just play however you want, you know, and it should just be whatever. But to me, I really like styles. I like the fact that this song is completely different than this song, you know. So I think that's very important to kind of really study the music. I mean, unless you want to do something that's bluesy and do it your own way and not really do it. But that would probably mean you're probably going to be doing your own music or playing with an original band. Yeah. But if you want to work with harmonica players or singers, probably best to kind of, you know, play in that style. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I kind of think. I don't know.
Thank you.
Anytime. Anybody else have any questions? Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You mentioned playing in church.
Yes.
How has gospel playing influenced your blues playing?
Oh. Rhythm and lead and phrasing and everything, you know. Because really, I mean, these kind of out of tune, but whatever. A gospel thing, you know, you might play something like, like a female voice. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm kind of thinking more, you know. And that's where I started playing like that. I don't know, it kind of sounds like BB, but to me it's kind of more gospel, you know.
Singable.
Yeah, it's like just like they sing, you know, and do the hymns and stuff like that in church. Yeah, cool. So that's kind of where, and it can go, I mean, even more involved, like, So I really draw a lot on the gospel thing too, and I think that might be one of the things that makes me sound a little different than other players is the gospel influence. And you know, the other thing about church too is like you kind of don't care. You kind of like if you mess up, it's okay. Or if somebody just does something, you're never surprised. You know, if somebody starts singing and they're in the wrong key or anything, you don't care. You're just like, okay, it's like church. You do whatever, you know. So yeah, there's many things for gospel music. Yeah. Gospel. Yeah, my approach to lead guitar playing. Lead guitar, I just talked about rhythm, but my lead guitar approach, this thing, I always talk about it in the workshops, is like, I came up with this blues scale when I was a little kid. It's like, simple, nothing to it, right? But Robben Ford, once again, and Larry Carlton were like, hey, you shouldn't play in one position. You know, you should learn how to play things all over the neck, you know, the guitar, so you can have more fluidity, you know. So like, something as simple as just playing, say you're in G, I'm just going. And then you can kind of connect those things, you know, and basically the combination of going, right? You can go, and you just, and through the years I just worked on that over and over again. And I mean, it started, you know, like when you're playing, like say for instance, you're playing a funky kind of thing and you're going like, you know, the song soloing over that, you know, like if you played in one position, it'd be like, woo! You know, and that's fun. We all like that. I mean, the Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of. Kind of thing, that's cool. But a different approach would be to kind of phrase more like you would hear other instruments phrase, you know, like a saxophone or a keyboard or something like that. And that means taking it simple and just thinking about playing all over the neck. You know, so you got like, so Kirk, what would Kirk think to do? Okay. Like just making music all over the neck, and then you kind of get in this whole thing. It's like if you just have this bag to play, it's cool, you know, and we love to play that. That's one approach to it. But another approach to have the same intensity, to have that same like gut level. Then you got different positions you can play the same kind of thing. Say you could play these top notes right here. Or you can play. In every position, you're kind of getting the most you can out of each position. Like, say, for instance, like. You can just stay right here and just go. just staying in one little thing and trying to get the most music out of the smallest thing. Once again, it's breaking it down to the smallest, simplest thing and just working it and working it and working it over and over again, the same thing. Because repetition is okay. Because what if people want to dance? You know, be out on the dance floor and dance and have a good time and drink and smoke and do drugs. Hopefully not, but but you know what I mean. Like if you're dancing, nobody wants to hear somebody taking some solo that's just all about him. They want to still move. So you have to, this was something I learned really early, is if you're going to take a solo, it has to remain rhythmically. Well, in my book, in the Kirk Fletcher School of Guitar, it has to remain rhythmic. You know, you want the whole solo to be like you still playing this. Still dancing. Put a little Ohio players in there. But you know what I mean? It's just about rhythmic and, you know, having more approaches to it. I mean, you could even, like something like that, you could think about it, for instance, to have more ideas to play over something like that, you could say, hey, what about the Albert Collins way, kind of his style, to kind of play over that, you know? Just kind of a little bit of his thing on there. Or you could take the Albert King way of playing over the same thing. You know, or you could take the B.B. King, you know, over the same. Or you could do, I don't know, you could do more of a country approach. Or you could take more of a like a rock way. You know, something like that. I mean, you know, just having so many different information, so much more information to play the same thing so it doesn't get boring. You know, and the same thing with like a shuffle. If you're playing the shuffle and you're playing like this, you know, all the rhythm players are going to get bored. Right? I mean, okay, after a while, you're like, okay. So knowing that you can play that, you know, and you can go like, or you can go, or you can go. Just having so many different ways to think about it, so you can be in your mind. If you can't think of something on the spot, you go, okay, well, how would Eddie Taylor play that? You know, and Eddie Taylor would be like, you know, a more country blues. I think I just talked about it. You know, just different ways of playing the same thing. There's even another one I'm missing or something. I could go on about this all the time. I mean, then you could play like, say for instance, I have all these Kirk Fletcher rules about what you can play. So if you're playing with an organ player, I wouldn't play like, well, Jimmy Vaughn does it, but Jimmy Vaughn can do anything he wants because he's one of the most amazing guitar players ever. But you know, most of the time, if an organ player is playing, then I have this rule where I won't play this with an organ player because, and what do you call it? Like through the times, you know, it wouldn't really have happened through the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So I have all these rules in my head. Like if I'm playing 50 style, I can only do certain things in that style. And if I'm playing 60 styles, I know you guys probably think I'm crazy, but like, you know, like if I'm playing with an organ player, then I would approach the shuffle like, I wouldn't go. Every once in a while you can kind of do it, but I wouldn't really do it. Or if I was playing uptown, like playing the T-Bone Walker style, you know, like. T-Bone Walker style, you know, and then like the soloing, I would stay in a certain thing because I think the rules, if you're accompanying somebody else or if you're playing, I think rules are okay. You know, I mean, you can break rules, but I think you have to know a certain amount before you can break the rules. Personally, this is the Kirk Fletcher way. This is not anybody else's, and I know you may disagree with me. But, you know, if I'm playing like, you know, I'm going to play. You know, I'm not gonna really play. You know, I'm not gonna do that because it's stylistically, that's the, wow, I shouldn't say this, but that's a problem with a lot of blues now is stylistically, people just think it's a free-for-all and you can just do whatever. But I think rules are beautiful. You know, I mean, rock blues is beautiful. We know rock blues is beautiful, right? I mean, you listen at like Led Zeppelin or the Band of Gypsies or something like that, that's amazing. But it's like they're not playing like over a T-Bone Walker groove, they're rocking out and it's cool, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean by rules. If you want to play rocked out, then maybe you should write some songs and play rocked out. If you want to play T-Bone Walker, maybe you should write some songs like T-Bone Walker and stay within these walls kind of. You know, and I'm the most craziest person that listens to all different kinds of music, and I like Joni Mitchell and the Carpenters and all that. But, you know, I think blues has really gotten way out of hand when it comes to like, you know, people just playing whatever, you know, hey, I got a new pedal and I'm gonna use it on this, or I got this new amp or this new piece of gear or whatever, and I'm gonna just, you know, just play whatever. And I think there is a place to write songs and to be able to do whatever. Like the 60s brought some of the most amazing music. I mean, it's some of the most iconic music ever. And it was mixing different things. It was mixing different styles, and it's amazing. But the thing is, I think that people in the 60s really knew about the music that came before them. You know, even 40s, 50s music, folk songs, and like they were writing. If you talk to like Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, what were they listening to? Kind of maybe they listened to the real basics and the beautiful things about where it came from and kind of done their own, went their own way, as opposed to, oh, you know, I'm a rock guitar player, but I'm gonna just play blues because maybe I can get more gigs. You know? And I mean, you got blues rock players that are amazing, and they play blues rock, and that's amazing. I love them. I'm inspired by it and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a tricky conversation because I'm definitely not a person to be like, oh, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. But in my book, certain things maybe need to have a few walls. You know, you kind of need to know how to like approach it. You need to know where to start from because it's overwhelming these days with the internet and all these different things, you know. I mean, it can just be overwhelming. A person might not even know about Robert Johnson or Sonny Boy Williamson, but they play blues. And it's like, man, that's like me saying I'm a jazz musician. I'm no jazz musician because I can't really play the language of jazz, you know, and the harmonic sophistication. But I can be a fan of it, you know. I don't know if this makes any sense, but but this is just the Kirk Fletcher kind of way of it. You know, there's many different ways and many different philosophies on blues and what's right or what's wrong or anything. But the main thing to think of is just, I think, going back to the essence of kind of how it started. If you want to start a rock band, I think you should listen to probably Little Richard and Chuck Berry and stuff like that, right? I mean, if you want to play rock and roll, I mean, if you want to be a blues rock musician, I think you should listen to Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and all that. That's all I mean. I don't mean like you have to do it one way. I just mean that you should go back farther maybe. And I know a lot of you guys do already, you know. Probably talking more to people in the States than I am here. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, I mean, I could play something else because I probably should shut up now. Any questions? They're like, Kirk, you're a liar. No. Any questions, or should I play something else? I guess that means I should go home. No. No, I'm just joking. Let's see, what does Kirky have in this juice box of tunes? Speaking of rock blues, let's rock out. Woo! Just a little messing around. I know after that big spiel about how you should keep everything traditional. Oh, I told you I was a big contradiction, of myself, But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you should always absolutely not think about it too much and be too serious about it. I just mean, at the beginning, I think it's nice to know the rules and then break the rules. I mean, and like having a combination. If you're playing a song or if you wrote a song or something like that, you should let whatever comes out and make it your own. You know what I mean? What I meant more, I guess, was going to a blues jam and playing like, Sweet Home Chicago, and then, bringing out your whole pedal board and then totally rocking out, playing Eddie Van Halen and doing all this stuff and letting your hair blow in the wind. That's what I mean. I mean, maybe it would be cool to like learn how to play Sweet Home Chicago or one of those songs, how it was recorded, and then going and embellishing on that, and making it your own over time, maybe, That's all I'm saying. I mean, it's like we all had to go to school. I wasn't so good in school, but I still had to go to learn how to read as much as I can, or, do math or whatever. It's just kind of like the same thing. You kind of have to go to the blues school. This is only the Kirk Fletcher way, I must say again, I think you have to go to school first, kind of. And school is a bunch of records and listening and talking to other people who maybe know more about blues than you do and asking them questions, because they always love, I want you guys to ask me questions about my favorite blues records or whatever, because that's fun. Everybody likes to talk about their record collection because they're proud of it. Oh, I listened to this, or oh, I listened to that, I mean, everybody loves that, I think so.
Let's start with Peter Green.
Oh, you just said Peter Green?
Yes,
Oh.
I had yesterday someone here who was very much a big fan of Peter Green.
Oh, Bernie Marsden, huh? Oh man, Bernie is amazing. White Snake. Oh my God. Did he bring his Les Paul?
No, it was number 10 of one of his records.
Oh, well, excuse me. He didn't bring the Beast? Oh man. But it was really a great guitar though, right? The one he brought?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But Peter Green, what's about Peter Green? What do you think about him?
I think he's one of the most soulful guitar players that ever walked the face of this earth. Peter Green is like, his voice and his singing, I mean, he was to me, I know people say that a lot, but I really do think Peter Green was ahead of his time, to me. I mean, his writing and everything, it's almost like you get these people in this world that are sort of here for a short time and they're way ahead, just miles. Hey, like Hendrix, to me, Peter Green and Hendrix were similar because, I mean, just those songs, the Green Manalishi and all that stuff, I mean, people done that like in the 70s and the 80s. They were trying to attempt to write songs like that, to me, so that's what I mean about being ahead of his time. And I mean, like B.B. King said, Peter Green was one of the only guys that gave him chills. I mean, and that's coming from the guru, our, blues god in a way, shall I say, lightly, So that's kind of a big, thing. And I think Peter Green could stand tall with any guitar player. But on the same hand, I do understand that Eric Clapton had to come out at the time he came out. He had to play the way he did, and that is with all due respect to Eric Clapton. Because, I mean, you listen at that first John Mayall record, and it's like, oh my goodness. To this day, you put it on, and there's no question. Time has passed so many years. That record came out, 65, 66? I mean, it sounds just as fresh and vibrant and alive as it did then, to me. Because Eric was playing the crap out of the guitar on that record, And then, I mean, Peter Green came along and Mick Taylor, and they sounded fantastic too. There's actually this live thing on YouTube where it's like Peter Green reunited with John Mayall and they're at the Bath Festival. You heard that? It's like in Bath or something. And Peter Green doesn't get off his wah-wah on the whole thing. Oh, it's the greatest thing ever. So amazing. See, I'm getting all excited. Told you, talking about records, I love it. Yeah. But Peter Green is definitely a man amongst men and ladies. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, and also like you got Peter Green and you got Eric Clapton, obviously, and Mick Taylor and Snowy White and all those guys. And then Mike Bloomfield too in a different way, you know.
And Jeff Beck, when he changed to more to the jazzy thing,
Yeah.
like Wired.
Yeah, that was the first record I ever had was Wired, actually. So I didn't even know about all this stuff, you know, before, like Truth and all that stuff. I didn't even know about that. I just knew about Wired because I'm only 42 and whatever was in the store on sale, the cassette I could buy, you know. So I put in Wired and I'm like, Wired? It was amazing, you know. And I still do things in my way to copy like Jeff Beck some things, you know, like he was the first guy I heard that done like. You know, and I kind of every once in a while throw that in there too, and it definitely came from that record, you know, because he was, I guess, in a way, he was trying to simulate like a keyboard player. You know, like Jan Hammer, he was trying to, you know, like mimic kind of like what he would do with the pitch wheel, and it was kind of a total different approach, you know. And I hadn't really heard anybody play like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but
It's unique.
yeah. I mean, Lonnie Johnson and those guys bent in a certain way, you know, like Lonnie Johnson had like that was the first guy I heard kind of play in that kind of style. Of course, I wasn't there, so maybe there was some guy in his garage playing like that. Who knows?
There's also one guy I'm a big fan of, and he made some records with some blues songs on it, although he's not typical blues player. Frank Zappa. Chunga's Revenge, there's one or the other nice song on it. Have you ever heard about?
I don't think so. I think they just stomped Kirky. I don't think I've heard that before.
Very interesting.
Is he from
Road
here?
Ladies, for example. That's a song on the Chunga's Revenge. It's very much blues. And,
Where are they from?
Flo and Eddie are singing on that. You must hear that. It's really incredible. So.
Are they from
The
here?
real blues thing.
Is it from here?
Has
Is he from here?
Frank Zappa?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you mean Frank Frank Zappa? Oh, of course. Oh man, I was like, sorry. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you. Frank Zappa, iconic. But you know, oh yeah, Frank Zappa. You know, I haven't.
Bonheim.
I know, right? Is he?
No.
Frank Zappa, I haven't really got into Frank Zappa much just because there isn't enough hours in the day. You know, it's so much music I've tried to listen to and tried to get, but that's a whole religion almost. It's like the Grateful Dead kind of. What's the record you said?
Chunga's Revenge. It's only one song or two songs.
Really?
But I give you, I burn you a record,
Nice.
CD with only blue stuff on it. You will be surprised. This guy was amazing.
Oh yeah, Frank Zappa. It's amazing. What era was that? Was that with the Fowler Brothers or?
Yeah, Fowler Brothers as well. So the famous Apostrophe record or so. There's stuff on it, Cosmic Debris, for example. But also with this Flo and Eddie guys.
Yeah.
71 or so.
Oh, 71.
Also with Steve
Okay.
Vai or so.
Oh yeah, Steve Vai, stunt guitar player. Vinny Colaiuta, Terry Bozzio.
What
Of course.
Apart from Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was
Absolutely.
really good.
Oh yeah, white guitar players are fantastic. I mean, I like white people. No, I'm just joking. Hey, does anybody want to hop up and play a little bit with me? It's an amp right there.
Stefan here,
Yeah,
this man. Come on.
yeah, of course.